Okay, and on to item 2, which was first of 2 E items, and that's a update on EnerFit refurbishment of St Sophia's Primary School in Galston, and Alistair will take us through that.
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update Cabinet on the EnerFit refurbishment of St Sophia's Primary School project and to seek agreement on the adjustment to the affordability cap and to also award the construction contract. I think firstly it's important to sort of take you back through the kind of background for the project. On the 12th of June 2019, Cabinet agreed to proceed with the full refurbishment of St Sophia's Primary School, given the flood risk being faced with SEPA, for the option to relocate the school to a new extension at Galston Primary School. In June 2020, it was subsequently agreed that the project be developed on a basis consistent with the new EnerFit building standard, making this the first EnerFit certified school of its type in the UK. This initiative attracted a lot of attention nationally, culminating in the project being awarded funding as part of the Scottish Government's Learning Estate Investment Programme Phase 2 in December of 2020. At this time, an affordability cap was established for the project using the SFT cost and area metrics. It was also assumed that the project would attract around about 50% funding from the Scottish Government, which was estimated at the time to be around about £1.8 million. Designs continued to be developed. However, during the early part of 2022, the cost plan highlighted that the cost would exceed budget due to inflationary pressures and market volatility. The report was presented to Cabinet on the 1st of June 2022, seeking to increase the affordability cap to £4.4 million. At the same time, the Facilities and Property Management team were able to secure an increase in the revenue support grant from the Scottish Government of £1.65 million, taking the total grant to £3.45 million. Since 2022, a significant amount of effort has gone into trying to minimise costs for the project where possible. In late 2022, the decision was also taken to amend the procurement strategy for the project, as there were concerns that the previous approach may not achieve value for money overall. Tenders were subsequently issued and returned in August of this year. Following assessment, the recommendation is to award the construction contract to the preferred bidder at a value of £4.495 million. This value compares very favourably with costs being experienced in similar construction projects in Scotland, and are anywhere between 10 to 25% lower than comparable market rates. This only seeks to support that it was the right decision to change the procurement strategy for the project in late 2022. As the design and tender were being developed, the project continues to be exposed to financial pressure from unrelenting market volatility. Discussions have been ongoing with the Scottish Government during this period to try and maximise the revenue support grant for the project. As a result, the project team has been able to secure a further increase in the grant of £791,000, bringing the total revenue grant support to £4.241 million, a considerable uplift from the £1.8 million originally assumed for the financial planning purposes in 2021. Whilst the contract award of £4.495 million does compare favourably, when all costs for the project are added together, the total costs are £1.4 million higher than the affordability cap. This gap is representative of the significant inflationary pressures experienced by the project over and above previous forecasts in 2022. The gap is also compounded by the original intent to try and absorb costs with the previous scheme to extend Galston Primary School against the original budget. Addressing a shortfall of this magnitude would have a significant impact on the existing capital programme, particularly given the limits on gross debt charges agreed by Cabinet on the 22nd of February 2023. However, as noted earlier, the revenue grant from the Scottish Government is now significantly higher than previously anticipated. It is therefore recommended that, given the additional grant funding and noting the strategic importance of the project in terms of the Council's learning estate aspirations to address the remaining property in C condition, that Cabinet approve an increase in capital borrowing of £1.4 million for the St Sophia's Primary School, with the higher debt charges offset against the additional revenue support from the Scottish Government, and to instruct the Chief Governance Officer to award the contract for the construction works. Happy to take any questions that any members have.
Thanks very much, Alistair. Thanks for the report. Good to see the team were able to manage to get those extra resources from the SFT. But I think there's just a wider issue in terms of the inflationary pressures, and that's maybe worrying for other projects in the future. But I'll open up for any questions. Graham?
Thanks, Leader. Yesterday I attended the annual meeting of planning conveners. At that meeting we were given a very sobering climate change presentation by Chris Stark. Chris is the the Chief Exec of the Climate Change Committee. It's an independent body who advise the Scottish Government and the climate change agenda. And in Chris's report, it showed that the global warming predictions that were predicted 20 to 30 years ago are now happening. And for Scotland, that means a lot drier summers and very wet winters. And I think we've seen that in Angus just recently. It's a very downbeat report, but there is a positive story in Scotland with Scotland's shift to renewable electricity production. And Chris highlighted the fact that surface transport and our buildings are going to be the next key areas to target. And Chris urged councils to be brave and bold when it comes to existing buildings, to retrofit them. And Leader, I was delighted to then inform Chris that our wee council, East Ayrshire Council, are that brave and bold council. And I told him about our plans to retrofit St Sophia's to NFIT standard. So that was a proud moment for me at this meeting. I think, as you say, we're leading the way. We're going to be the first council in the UK to do this. So I'm happy to recommend the recommendations. So, yeah.
That's good to hear, Graham, and I think the team will appreciate that, and I think Cabinet recognises that and pass that through to the team. We're absolutely proud to hear that. Anyone else? No, Maureen?
Thanks very much. It's really just a small one, and it is just because, again, I think sort of all the financials on this are actually quite complicated, as genuinely has the process been. I'm happy with the recommendations. I just would have been even happier if I had actually seen a paragraph which gave me those exact figures within the body of the report.
We can attend to that and make sure that's circulated. I know that should be a problem. Thanks, Maureen. Okay, no, please we move the recommendation. Good to hear that we're a pioneering authority again, and that's good for the community up in the Irvine Valley. Good to see. So move the recommendations. Good. Thanks. Okay, next item is the Sports Scotland Investment 2024-2027, and Kevin will present this.
Thank you very much, Chair and members. It's a delight to be taking this paper to you today. The report in front of you is to provide an update on the success of active schools in East Ayrshire and ask members to approve continued council investment in the programme until 2027 to progress this work and the work of our community sports hubs. The recommendations are set out in section 2 of the report, but just to advise in terms of the background of this report is in paragraphs 3 to 10, and remind members that this programme has been in operation since 2005, working alongside Sports Scotland. It has grown to include that work around about community sports hubs, and really works towards that Scottish Government Active Scotland outcomes framework. The work here is aligned to Sports Scotland's corporate plan, Sport for Life. And it certainly is a follow-on from that paper I brought forward to Cabinet in March of this year, where we had a continuation for a one-year partnership agreement. That partnership agreement ends on the 31st of March 24, and it is recommended in terms of this report that we take forward 3 years funding up to 2027. This work will not only continue the work of active schools, but also support that work around community sports hubs, of which we have 8 presently. Members, in terms of paragraphs 11 to 31, there's some really positive information about the work of active schools and community sports hub, its progress and highlights. and recognising the difference that this work makes to the lives of our children and young people by improving health and wellbeing, increasing participation, unlocking leadership potential and developing employability. In paragraph 13, you will see that updated information around about active schools from the last report, where we had 43% of school roll participating in structured programmes. That's 5% higher than the national average. Where we had almost 7,000 distinct participants with a male to female ratio of 57% to 43%, which is also really high in terms of this field of work. As well as the school roll participation rates within our ASN establishments was 98%, one of the highest rates in the country. Members, also within paragraph 14, in terms of the attendance rates within our active schools provision between 2019 and 2023 is in excess of 500,000 attendances. We've had 1,100 female-only sessions in this work, and we've seen female participation get to 195,000 attendances over that period. We're now 6 months into a one-year plan, and you'll see in paragraph 16 the various different highlights of our successes this year alone. It's really important to highlight that actually our work goes beyond the school day and the school grounds, and our work round about Premier Night Leagues in the evenings. In that sense, where we've had 91 Premier Night League sessions during that term 3 period, with an average attendance of 35 young people at each session. Active Schools also coordinates its own holiday provision throughout the year, and particularly focusing around Easter and summer holidays. And in paragraph 18, it indicates the reach of that work and impacting children and young people and the families that work supports. Paragraph 19 also highlights the really positive work that we do around about additional support needs children and young people, and in particular that work over the summer in terms of those young people who needed that little bit of extra support but weren't in the cohort of needing enhanced personal support. Paragraph 26 of the report, sorry members, I've jumped. Paragraph 20 of the report highlights the partnership working that takes place through Active Schools and some of our key assets that we have in East Ayrshire that work around about Kilmarnock Community Sports Trust and Kilmarnock Juniors Enterprise, and the money that they bring into the authority and delivery of sport in their own right. But that work around about 38 primary schools receiving 6-week programmes in terms of football, and the 1,500 children and young people attending Active Schools in Kilmarnock Community Sports Trust programmes. Paragraph 21 highlights that work around about Active Schools and providing sports development support to local sports clubs. This is works as part of the Vibrant Communities Housing and Communities redesign work that we've taken forward over the last couple of years, and involving our Active Schools colleagues more in that sports development role. That's seen as support to local sports clubs in developing their SFA quality mark, ensuring that we have high standards within our local sports organisations here in East Ayrshire. And in paragraph 22, that work in terms of supporting care experienced young people, so that we can assist in terms of developing that equity of access to sport and physical activity. Members, just in terms of that work that Active Schools do around about leadership and volunteer development in that last 6 months, in paragraph 25 highlights the work around about developing of coach education and other governing body accreditation for volunteers in our work. And volunteer recruitment, development and retention remains a key priority for Active Schools going forward. This work cannot be done without those volunteer coaches and other practitioners in that field. Members, just in terms of that work round about community sports hubs and our work with national governing bodies, in terms of developing sport within East Ayrshire, and paragraph 30 highlights the reach of that work with our community sports hubs in terms of the athletes that are part of those clubs, the coaches involved, and the internal, external funding investment that is being drawn in to those clubs. There's some highlights in terms of that work as well, in terms of Grange Community Sports Hub, and working with Harvard Badminton Club, hosting the Scottish Schools Badminton Championships in March. That's the first time the championships have been held out with Perth since its inception. As well as the work in supporting community clubs such as Auchinleck Bowling Club to secure funding to invest in solar paneling, helping their sustainability going forward. And the work with Cycle Anic in terms of that development of a pump track for Stewarton. Members, in terms of paragraphs 32 to 38, highlights the future developments and investment programme that we would see in the next 3 years through this investment partnership agreement. Particularly in paragraph 33 outlines the key priorities of our work. Also supporting school sports awards, as outlined in paragraph 35, and the development and continuation of those community sports hubs as outlined in paragraphs 36. It is important to say that this team is also developing and moving with the other developments within East Ayrshire, particularly that work in support of the Heart Wellbeing model, and each of our active schools coordinators and community sports hub officers are interlinked with that work and that development of place-based working. Members, in terms of paragraphs 39 to 43, the policy and strategic planning implications are outlined and where this ties across our policy agenda. And I think importantly to highlight in paragraphs 44 to 47, the human resource implications. This will, as our envelope gets squeezed in terms of the investment, will require us to reduce our FTE equivalent by 1.5 posts over the investment period, and that's outlined in paragraph 44. It will see the reduction of one full-time post for the new fiscal year. And that will incur redundancy payments, which will be absorbed within our operating costs. This is a fixed term member of staff that was on a short-term temporary contract. And we have been engaging with our trade union representatives. We would also utilise our workforce plan to take forward the other reductions in that post, and there are certainly plans in place working with our staff cohort there. The financial implications, members, in paragraphs 48 to 51, and it outlines the current investment and the investment that we seek in terms of the council to the sum of roughly £634,000. That will attract circa of £1.2 million of Sports Scotland investment for this programme over the 3 years. Members, in paragraphs 52 to 57, I outlined the risk implications associated with this programme, namely the employee risks, the health and wellbeing risks, leadership and volunteer risks, and sports club development support risks, and reputational risk for the council. In conclusion, members, this is a positive report. It will allow the continuation of this really valuable work throughout the authority. And I have included within the appendices and background papers hyperlinks to those documents in terms of those 4-year highlights and the previous investment paper that came forward to you in March. They are available via the website report that is online for those of you who haven't had a chance to or sight of that. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Kevin. An excellent report there. You've got a staggering number of attendance levels, huge attendance levels and participation in the project, including my own kids who, certainly a time when they're dragged away from the PlayStations, etc. And that's something that's certainly to be welcomed. Kevin, just a wee question, just in terms of looking at different groups. In terms of corporate parenting, I know we've got issues there. Are we making kind of special efforts to target, some of the looked after children that we've got to make sure that they're participating as well?
Thank you, Chair, and for yourself. In terms of the Active Schools complements, one of the members that we have has a particular focus around about care experienced young people, and they look at that whole spectrum of work, including those whom we are corporate parents for, and will interact with those children, linking with each of the establishments and creating that network across our Active Schools teams in terms of looking to specifically target them and encourage their participation and see what extra barriers we can overcome for their participation in sport and physical activity, as well as also connect that into the other opportunities that are available for our care experienced young people in terms of the other providers, other supports that are out there, going wider than just the sport as well, trying to make that connection into other areas of work. But yeah, we've got a dedicated staff member for that.
Well, that's great to hear. Elaine and Claire.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Kevin for highlighting some of the significant achievements of this Active Schools programme. I recently attended the Sports Council, the quarterly Sports Council that some elected members are appointed to, and I had the opportunity to meet some of the youths that were involved in the programme and our own staff who I believe have came through that career transition as well into employment in the area. What was mentioned at that meeting as well was the East Ayrshire Talented Athlete Programme. So obviously some of the work that's getting done here at the grassroots to me is almost like a feeder programme into that. But I was blown away by the amount of talented athletes that we've been supporting, people with potential not only to represent their country at Commonwealth and Olympic standard, but actually to get on the podium and get medals. And that's obviously the pinnacle of their career. But sometimes sport can give people a lifeline and a career opportunity that maybe is not available in other areas. So really, to make a pun, East Ayrshire again punching above its weight here. So very supportive of the recommendations.
Thanks very much, Elaine. I think and it's been to the awards ceremony. It's just quite breathtaking, just the range and depth of support that we're giving to people right across the community. Claire, then.
Thanks very much, Leader. Just to echo what Elaine said, but I'm also delighted to see that in paragraph 21, they've picked out Shortleys Amateur Football Club, which is very popular, obviously, and by being supportive of them, they can go for their SFA mark, which then allows them to go for SFA funding, which allows for new pitches. So this is not just one-off, this is absolute development. So delighted that Shortleys got picked as an example.
Thanks, Claire. Maureen?
Very much. No, I'm very supportive of the paper. Obviously, noting at the paragraph 50 there that our investment for next year moves from 49% to, by the time we get to 26-27, to 57%. So I think that indicates that we are absolutely committed to this. I just ask the slightly, it might be viewed as controversial question, but I see where this fits at this moment in time. Is this the best fit for this programme across the wider remit of the council? So I suppose I'm asking, given the work in terms of East Ayrshire Leisure, is there not an opportunity for it to move home, as it were, but not in any way to undermine the programme, actually to look at how we integrate and how we advance this programme going forward?
Thanks, Maureen. Maybe bring Richard in.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor. I think from my experience in terms of Active Schools, I was involved in one of the initial pilots way back in 2005. I'm showing my age, members, but this, I would agree, is an incredibly positive report in terms of the numbers and those participating. There's maybe a couple of responses, Councillor, if I may. The first one is certainly I'd be keen to work with the team to ensure that we have a focus moving forward on targeted interventions and being very focused around that. And what I mean by that is that this programme was predominantly around targeting physically inactive young people, as opposed to those individuals who may well participate in generic activity through the likes of the Leisure Trust and indeed through other partners and sports club as well. So it's using this funding to very much target those individuals, those young people who are physically inactive. And in the same way, given our challenges around antisocial behaviour, as the leaders mentioned, some of the youth diversionary activities, making sure that we're absolutely targeting the right individuals in the right area and working across that multi-agency setting to make sure we're not duplicating resource and we're working with partners to the greatest effect. All of that, I think, in terms of the second point, will align with a piece of work that the Chief Exec's asked me to lead on, which is a review of leisure services and making sure that we work very closely with all of our partner agencies, clubs and communities in that regard to ensure that there is a very close fit and everything that we do is aligned very much with the council priorities and our strategic outcomes in that regard. I hope that answers the question, Councillor. Thanks, Leader.
Thank you. Yes, I take it from that. We're looking at everything and ruling nothing in and ruling nothing out, and that's a good starting point. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Yeah, good point. Anyone else? Jim?
Thanks again. Just pick up on the point around about volunteering. I had the privilege of attending Cumnock Juniors Enterprise Trust when the Minister was there, Emma Roddick, and we had a person that started out volunteering, very low self-esteem, but was able to stand up and do a presentation. So just some of the good aspects that come out of that, with people being able to volunteer, gain a bit of confidence, and to be able to stand up the way she did on that particular day was highly commended over. So yeah, and particularly that focus again around about the nighttime leagues and antisocial behaviour, and it's good to see the numbers increasing in that. I think just picking up on the numbers, and Dougie touched on it, around about this, since its inception, 1,000, I think just 1.1 million, just short of that, participants in that, over the 54,000. So really good, encouraging figures.
Thanks, Jim. Great point. Anyone else? Oh, okay, can we agree the recommendations? Okay, thank you. And that's the end of our educational items. We'll give our education spokespersons or education participants time to leave. Okay. We've now got the first of a suite of papers from Karen Purvis from Planning. And item 4 is the Caulfield Communities Landscape Partnership Place Names Project, University of Glasgow contract extension. Karen.
Thanks, Chair, and morning, members. So the purpose of this paper is to seek approval to offer an extension to the existing contract with the University of Glasgow to deliver the Caulfield Communities Landscape Partnership Place Names Project. The vision for that project is set out in paragraph 5, and will deliver a £6.4 million scheme taking forward 22 projects across the former Caulfield area. The Place Names project is part of that family of projects, and it's been delivered by the University of Glasgow through the project and aims to re-engage the local community with their physical and cultural environment through understanding their past and planning for the future. Whilst the project is not completed yet due to a number of factors outlined in paragraphs 9 and 10, the time-limited direct award contract has. There's a whole range of outcomes and outputs set out in the paper, but the outstanding activities are set out in paragraph 14 and comprise a number of events and a final report. The next steps for this work are to issue a letter of extension for the contract with the university, subject to recommendations today, and that will detail the work required to complete it and highlight the contract will expire in October next year. There's no change in the cost of the project and no further funding is needed to complete it, and there is still a remaining grant to issue which will cover the remaining work. And the recommendations are set out in paragraph 2, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks for that report. Members, any questions on it? No? Okay, can we just maybe go straight to recommendations? Can we agree recommendations? Okay. We're now on to item 5, the Deer Management Statement from Karen.
Thanks, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to present to you for information a deer management statement which sets out the Council's responsibilities around managing deer, and approval is sought to publish the statement as a background paper on the Council's planning web page, noting its crossover and linkages with land use planning, which will be explored further in the preparation of Local Development Plan 3. Per paragraphs 3 to 6, and in respect of the Deer Scotland Act, Nature Scot is working to develop deer management at a local authority level, and as such commissioned a consultant to prepare a statement for East Ayrshire at no cost to us. This has now been prepared in consultation with Development Planning and New Generation and the Leisure Trust and is presented through this report. The statement provides an understanding of the presence of deer in East Ayrshire as set out in summary in paragraphs 7 to 9. We don't at present have a formal adopted policy or plan in place in relation to deer management, and we consider that on a site-by-site basis where need is identified. We've not undertaken any culling on any land we own, and ARA keeps a record of collisions and reviews data to inform the need for deer warning signs on roads. So it's intended that this statement, as presented in Appendix 1, will moving forward be used to guide how the Council manages deer, and paragraph 11 sets out what we'll be looking to do going forwards. To take a coordinated approach, we will be developing an action plan, and a lot of that work will be able to be embedded into ongoing work, such as the development plan preparation and green space maintenance, rather than creating additional work streams, and we'll do that work in collaboration with the Leisure Trust. So in summary, we're just seeking approval to publish the statement as a background paper, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Karen. Members, well, in the summer they're reporting to Leisure Trust that I spotted a deer in the back door of the Grand Hall of all places, right in the heart of the town centre. So the deer seem to get everywhere. So good to see this report and the widening issue that we have in terms of certainly on the countryside. Members, any comments or questions? Okay, can we get straight to recommendations? Okay. Right, item 6 is the Mauchline Conservation Area Regeneration Scheme update. Back to Karen again.
Thanks, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to update on the progress of the Mauchline Cars project and to seek approval for the amendments that are set out prior to us seeking formal agreement for these changes from Historic Environment Scotland. Paragraphs 3 to 5 set out the background to the project, including how the council contribution towards the cars would be funded, what we set out to achieve in those timescales. And 6 to 13 go through the detail of where we are in terms of our agreed outputs and outcomes. There have been ongoing delays and implications as per paragraph 6. Many building owners are in a harder financial position and have less money. And for some owners, match funding repairs, which have escalated in cost, has become more difficult. And most notably, we've had issues progressing our priority projects with 3 of the 6 of those belonging to the same owner who sadly passed away, and the sale of that estate not yet having been concluded. And so now we're looking to reprofile and reallocate funding as per paragraphs 7 to 10 of the report. As per paragraphs 11 and 12, the small grant fund project is going well and we expect to be on site this year, and paragraphs 11 to 17 generally go through a number of other outputs and updates. Moving on to some of the implications of the difficulties we've faced in progressing the scheme, paragraph 18 discusses the appointment of Wiley Shanks and the volume of abortive work they've had to undertake due to the circumstances of owners looking at grant support. And there is a fee recovery claim for architectural works, which has been submitted. Facilities and Property Management have supported the process of considering this and do consider the claim to be fair. And we can accommodate the costs by reallocating money from the training budget to the staff and administration budget, while still meeting the training outcomes on a reduced budget. Through the project updates, earlier in the report, we set out how we think we need to adjust the action plan to cope with the challenges we've faced and to deliver a scheme. And the totality of the proposals in terms of the action plan are set out in Appendix 3. As per paragraph 20, this does have significant implications on timescales, which in turn presents a risk the project may not be able to complete and draw down match funding by 2025. And in extending the CARS by a further year, that will help us address the delays and to ensure the key projects and economic benefits arising from them have the best chance of being realised. The cost of this and how it will be accommodated are set in paragraph 20, but noting there are no additional core funding implications as a result of this. Due to ongoing flexibility likely to be required as projects are costed and adjusted, we are requesting delegated authority as per paragraph 21 to vary funds between individual projects to ensure a full spend of the grant is achieved within the allocated timeframe, reporting back to Cabinet to advise on the funding allocation and progress. So in terms of the implications, the main thing I want to draw out is in terms of the required additional monies to be allocated from the Restoring Communities programme for 25-26, which is currently within the existing service budget. This is ring-fenced for environmental projects and will leave a balance of 104,000 in financial year 25-26 for other projects. We don't yet have any other commitments against it in 25-26, but this proposal would reduce funds available to match fund against future environmental projects in that financial year. There are 6 recommendations set out in paragraph 2, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Karen. Members, any comments, questions? Elaine?
I'm happy to take the recommendations, Chair. Just a comment. I'm disappointed, the level of investment in this project, that we weren't able to realise the aspirations for the modern apprenticeship and the part-time artists in residence. So I realise the external pressures that a lot of our projects are on and the budget strains and inflationary things over and above this specific project where you've had issues with ownerships, etc. But just wanted to recognise my disappointment, and hopefully that won't subdue any further aspirations we have in this area to look for opportunities for modern apprenticeships and part-time artists and residents, those type of opportunities, because I think these are real benefits, real spin-offs that we can deliver through council projects and programmes in our communities. Thank you.
No, thanks, Elaine. That's a good point. Karen?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Cowan. I'll just say that we do within our team have a number of, or have had a number of apprentices. We've got an apprentice at the moment, and we're just got an advert out for another one. And whilst we've not been able to support it fully through this particular scheme, that modern apprentice is getting experience across all of our projects, including CARS. And as I say, the vacancy that we've got at the moment, which we're just going through the recruitment process for, will also get the opportunity to do that. So we as well very keen to support modern apprentices within economic growth, and are still doing as much as we can in order to do that.
Thanks, Karen. Anyone else? Okay, can we go to recommendations? Great, thank you. Now, move exclusion of press and public. Before I invite our delegation in, can I bring Christine in?
Yeah, no, apologies, Chair. I was just going to ask IT callers, could you stop the recording, please?